and welcome back to Gifts of Intuition. Welcome if you're new here. I'm Melissa, and I am a licensed therapist and also a spiritual seeker. And today I want to go down a little bit more of a spiritual route today, also, of course, incorporating the psychology of it all, and as always, the divine feminine. So I hope you find this episode interesting. It's a little different than some of the other ones we've done. So again, welcome to my channel, Gifts of Intuition. I'm so happy you're here. So today I want to talk to you about tarot cards. I have many tarot card decks, and this may be an episode that you didn't see coming. I don't know, maybe some of you did, but I want to talk today about the archetypes in tarot, or tarot as some pronounce it. I don't know which one's technically right or wrong, or if it's just a tomato situation. So I kind of jump back and forth between tarot and tarot. Anyway, I want to talk about the archetypes. I want to talk about symbolism and the human mind. So I hope you find this interesting, if nothing else, and maybe you'll learn a little bit something about tarot that you've never knew or considered ever really learning about. So if you've ever had a tarot reading before, whether it was by a professional or a friend, or if you've ever just dabbled in playing around with drawing a few cards and seeing what you got, then you might have some better familiarity with what I'm talking about today. If these are a completely foreign thing to you, then I hope you learned something, and again, take what you want, leave the rest as always. But again, so I want to look at why it is that sometimes tarot card readings can feel so accurate and maybe not accurate. And maybe some of you chalk this up to opening a magazine or going into back in the day, the newspaper, and looking at your horoscope and being like, oh, that fits, cool, or that doesn't fit, eh. And maybe it is something like that for you, where it's like, it's just for fun, and that's okay. That's okay if it's just for fun. I do want to say, though, there's nothing evil about tarot cards. There's nothing satanic or bad or evil about it. So I just, sometimes things can get a bad rap because they're misunderstood. And sometimes there's a need to make things scary and evil when they're maybe contrary to certain belief systems. So I'm just here to say there's nothing evil about them. They're just cards with beautiful artwork that have symbolism and meaning to various people in various ways. And yes, they are a form of divination. And what that means is divining messages from spirit, whether that's your spirit guides or something more. If you are somebody who has a particular gift in mediumship, you may use cards to sort of increase the message or clarify the message. So it's a tool. It's just a tool, like many other tools in connecting with your deeper self and your spirit team. So again, take what you want and leave the rest. Okay. So anyway, sometimes they feel really accurate, and that's a large part to do with how you view them and what you're trying to get for them. So a deck can symbolize many different things to many different people. So I want to kind of give you a brief intro to the deck. The one I'm using today, just for example, is called the Modern Hue Tarot. I really like this one. It's by the company Ritual, Writual. They make planners, yearly planners that I really enjoy working with. I'm not as consistent with them as I would like to be, but they do a really good job of showing you how to do a reading and then kind of break it down, setting goals, really looking for your intuitions, moving forward into each moon cycle. So anyway, I got a lot out of those journals, and I like their cards. They also have a book. I have it down here too. It goes with it, and I am not sponsored by them. I just really like their stuff. But they have a book called Decoding. Oh, there you go. Decoding the Cards, and I find this really helpful. So I have the cards, but then if I want to have deeper understanding of what the card is trying to say, not just from what the, like, for instance, the Fool, we'll say that's the first card in the journey. It's the Fool's journey going through tarot. But it's not just what does the Fool mean across the board in any kind of deck, but maybe the Fool with this particular artwork from this particular deck creator. So I really enjoy this, but it's pretty straightforward. So anyway, that's what I'm holding. I have a whole collection of tons of cards I could be pulling, but I don't know. I felt inclined to go to these today. Okay, so I'm kind of all over the place. This is a newer topic for me, so buckle up. Here we go. So in a deck of cards, so this is the standard card deck inspired from the original Rider-Waite Tarot deck. And so it contains major arcana cards and minor arcana. So the major arcana consists of, like I said, starting with the Fool, and it's, hold on, let me pull up. I'll read you all the major arcana cards. So it's the first 22 cards in a standard Rider-Waite Tarot deck. And so I wish I could show you all the artwork here, but like, okay, hold on. No, wait, we're backwards. Okay, so the artwork in here is just so beautiful. I love it so much. So it goes from the Fool, which is considered card 0 in the deck. Every card is numbered, so it's 0 is the Fool. And then we have the Magician, and we have, there's so much to talk about, and I'm trying to just keep it basic, but then we have the High Priestess, and next we have the Empress, followed by the Emperor, followed by the Hierophant, and the order does not matter. I'm just going through the order of the book here. The Lovers, and the Chariot, and the Strength card, and the Hermit, and the Wheel of Fortune. So I'm hoping you're hearing in these titles the symbolism that could probably be conveyed through these. The Justice card, the Hanged Man or Hanged One, depending on the deck, the Death card, which scares a lot of people, but it's not as scary as it sounds, Temperance, the Devil, the Tower, the Star, the Moon, the Sun, and then Judgment, and the World. And that's the last one, the World. So I read those in order rather than just trying to name them off the top of my head, because the order always is the same in the Rider-Waite Tarot Smith decks. So yeah, those are the first 22 cards. Then we have the minor arcana, and that is very similar to like a deck of cards, like a deck of playing cards. And actually tarot started as a game originally. It was just a card game. But then it became used for divination and became more of what we think of it now. But you could use a standard deck of cards for divination too. And I will say there's also oracle decks. I didn't mention those, but every tarot card deck is an oracle deck, but not every oracle deck is a tarot deck. So oracle decks are much more broad in their categories. They don't necessarily follow any specific rhyme or reason like a tarot deck does. But it can be whatever the creator wanted to make it. They often have different themes for times of year or different elements. There's angel decks, there's seasonal decks, there's so many. And so they just tend to follow a theme throughout the decks of how to convey a message, how to give you inspiration and hope through a specific theme. Anyway, when we go into the minor arcana, and you may not even care about this background, but I want to at least give it a little bit. So the minor arcana is made up of cups, pentacles, swords, and wands. So again, much like your standard, like normal playing cards decks, you've got hearts, diamonds, spades, and clubs. Well, with tarot, it's cups, pentacles, swords, and wands. And so every suit has the court cards, just like your normal deck of cards. It's got the king and the queen, and there's also a page and a knight, so kind of like the jack, I guess. But there's a page and a knight and a queen and a king, and then it goes 1 to 10. So very similar concept as your deck of cards. And then each suit has its own theme. Each number has its own message. So it takes time and practice to kind of get what the message is supposed to be conveying so that you can read cards. And the nice thing about sticking to something like the Rider-Waite tarot decks is like it's pretty uniform across the board. That, like, for instance, cups are more emotions. Think of water and how water flows and emotions flow. It's a very similar thing. So, and then like the pentacles are always like an earthly theme or an object, like money or home. I'll read from this book and just tell you how they put it. So the suit of cups, as I mentioned, signifies emotions, dreams, and desires, all the things that make us human, representing the element of water. The cups cards are often associated with relationships, love, intuition, and spiritual energy. They can be used to explore inner depths or gain insight into external events. Okay, and then the suit of pentacles is a powerful tool for those seeking to gain insight into the material world. Representing the element of earth, it can offer guidance on matters of physical and financial well-being, as well as provide more esoteric advice, such as spiritual grounding and connection with nature. The suit also provides insight into our relationship with money and possessions, helping us to understand how we use them in our lives. This book says it much better than I did. I'm glad I decided to read it. Okay, swords. The suit of swords symbolizes power, authority, and truth. It represents the mental aspects of life, such as thoughts, ideas, and beliefs. The swords are associated with strength and courage in difficult situations. They can be used to cut through confusion and reveal hidden truths or knowledge. Swords are associated with the element of air. And then we have wands. The suit of wands, sometimes known as rods or staves, is associated with the element of fire in the traditional tarot deck. This suit symbolizes creativity, energy, ambition, and passion. Its cards are often associated with career and business-related matters, such as starting new projects or developing business plans for success. So if you can see that each suit has its own theme, and then the different numbers within those themes can give you a different message pertaining to that, whether it's a positive outlook or negative or challenging or where you are in it. And then the court cards have a bit more oomph to the message. And so I'm going to go into all that, but I wanted to give you at least the basic background on this. So, because there is a lot of symbolism that is common in all decks, but there's also interpretation by various creators that can be unique. But then it's also encouraged that as a tarot reader, if you ever want to become one, to really understand what the cards mean for you. And that's the part I'm still working on myself. It's very much an intuitive process working with tarot cards. And that's part of what I love about it and struggle with, because I struggle personally with trusting my intuition when it comes to the cards, and I often find myself still looking up the definitions or the meanings, and I'm really personally on a journey trying to read the cards for as I feel like what they're trying to say to me. And so it's kind of what I wanted to do this episode, to encourage myself, but also to see if there's anybody else who might benefit from that too. So, okay, so let's look at how a deck of symbolic images such as these can evoke such strong emotional reactions, even deep realizations or moments of clarity that feel almost spiritual. And like I said, take what you want, leave the rest. I'm not here to encourage anyone to have any specific spiritual belief or view these in any particular spiritual way, but I do want you to know that there's nothing evil about them. It's really how you find them useful or beneficial in your own personal practice and personal growth. So today I want to really kind of break down the following categories. I want to explore why tarot works psychologically, the role of archetypes and symbolism, how the unconscious mind responds to imagery, why humans naturally seek meaning in symbols, and how tarot can function as a tool for self-reflection, intuition, emotional processing, and shadow work. And I've talked about shadow work in a previous episode too, so check it out. So importantly, this conversation, once again, is not about proving or disproving any type of spiritual practice or spirituality. You do not have to believe tarot is magical for it to have any psychological value. Because whether you see tarot as spiritual, symbolic, intuitive, therapeutic, creative, or reflective, there is something deeply human about why these cards resonate so strongly. So let's talk about it. Okay, so humans are symbolic creatures, and human beings naturally think in stories, symbols, metaphors, and emotional imagery. We always have. And long before modern psychology existed, humans used mythology, art, storytelling, rituals, dreams, symbols, and archetypal figures to understand themselves and the world around them. I mean, think of all of our major spiritual texts. They tell a story. There are morals in those stories. Whether you believe those stories or not, it ultimately doesn't matter. There's characters that we connect to. There's stories that we can relate to sometimes, but there's usually a through line of like a moral message there that's supposed to help guide us and lead us down a path that is beneficial to us and, frankly, humanity. So tarot taps directly into that symbolic language. The cards contain emotionally charged imagery. And I will say, too, the reason I have so many decks is, well, I'm a collector of them, but also they're all so different and unique. And the imagery just evokes different feelings and experiences for me, and I feel drawn to them. So, like, I'll show you, for instance, again, I've showed you these ones, but it's kind of like like a watercolor look to the cards. Like that's the Hermit right there. And I don't know, I just think they're really pretty, frankly. Here's the King of Wands. It's just a really pretty deck. It's like watercolors. It's very gentle, I guess. It gives me very gentle vibes. Like, it doesn't seem like a harsh, direct message that's like judgmental in nature. And that may sound silly to those of you who are not tarot card readers, but I'm going to bring out this other deck that I just happen to have sitting right here. This one is the Tarot Emblemata. And this one, I liked it because it's a bit more educational in how it's set up, because it gives you the symbol, but then it like also gives you some verbiage right there on the card without having to look it up. And so the Three of Cups, I like this one. It's the harp, pulls me back to my Irish roots. Let me see what else. So this is a very basic deck, I guess. I don't know if that's the right verbiage, but it's really pretty in its own right. And the different kinds of artwork that you're going to find on these cards are going to speak to you in different ways. And I don't know. At the risk of bringing out all my decks, I don't want to like go overboard here, but I think that it's really important to recognize that the imagery and the artwork are so much a part of the card you drew, because it's going to connect to you. It's going to evoke an emotional reaction, or and it may be like, ooh, I don't like that, or it may be like, oh my God, that's just so beautiful. Let me sit with that a little bit longer, you know? This one's really cool too. This is the Antique Anatomy Tarot. Let's see if you can see it on camera. Antique Anatomy Tarot. I really like this one. This is by Claire Goodchild. I really like her work, her Memento Mori work. This one is pretty cool. Of course, I grabbed the Devil, but this is the Devil card. Like, how cool is that? And then instead of cups, it's elixirs, because again, sticking with the theme of like water or liquid for emotions. Anyway, it's just really cool to see how creative some of these deck creators get. Anyway, I may pull out some more as we go along here, but I want to kind of get back to my point. But anyway, there's a lot out there. There's so many varieties. Okay, anyway, tarot taps directly into the storytelling and imagery that we are naturally drawn to. I mean, just think of the beautiful, amazing, creative stories of like Greek mythology and Roman mythology, and how for a long time that guided many people. And we now call it mythology, but back then that was their belief system. It wasn't mythology, you know? And frankly, even the Bible is a collection of myths, of stories to guide. And you know, we don't really refer to that as mythology, but it's not much different, you know? And so too are these cards. They have their own mythology to them. The Fool goes on his journey and encounters different experiences along the way. And so it kind of helps you understand maybe where you are in your personal journey. You know, are you the Fool who's starting out with something? And the Fool maybe gives a bad rap, but it's basically you're unaware or not knowledgeable on what's coming next because you're starting out. You're new at something. Maybe it's a new job or a new relationship or a new stage of life, or I don't know, something new that you're trying that you've never done before. And so in that aspect, you are a fool of it. And you know, how you leap into that journey and how you push forward is very much represented in the journey of the tarot cards. So depending on the cards that you get, you're going to get different imagery that represents this concept of death. And it may be like death of life, but it could also be death of a relationship. Death can also be like the loss of a job, or just a cycle ending. And then it often represents rebirth. And rebirth is a theme that comes into the deck often too, as like the importance of recognizing that as one door closes, another opens, or as one cycle ends, a new begins. There's definitely the motherhood component here with the Empress. She's literally a pregnant woman on the card, and of course I can't just like I didn't set her out ahead of time to say that, but she's, I feel like the Empress card very much represents what we're doing in this group. It's not just birthing a baby, but it's a woman birthing her creation into this world. And so in many aspects, like creating this YouTube channel is me birthing that into the world for you guys to hopefully enjoy and learn from. Transformation is a big theme. Fear is a huge theme. I know the Tower card in particular, it represents just something completely collapsing, something completely just falling apart so that we can build anew. And often when you get the tarot, the Tower card, it can be very scary and fear invoking because, oh my God, everything's going to fall apart. And it's like, well, maybe, but like sometimes the rebuild is so much better than the original, right? The Death card can evoke a lot of fear. Again, it's often more about rebirth than it is actual death. The Devil card may invoke some fear, but that tends to be more about unhealthy relationships or attachments like addiction, or not using your mind and going straight for the emotional reaction of something. So it's not always what you think it is, but a lot of these cards can evoke a certain amount of fear. Fives in the deck, I get a little uncomfortable when I see fives in the deck, not for some superstitious reason, but often fives indicate struggle or challenge in whichever suit they're in. So I always kind of go into those like, oh, what is this going to tell me, And then there's many themes. There's power, there's loss, there's intuition, which a lot of this is very intuition based, conflict, hope, like the sun is hope, and isolation and celebration. A lot of, especially with the Pentacles, you get like family celebration, and you get, and with the hearts, now I'm jumping back, the cups, relationship celebration, and and healing. So when humans encounter symbolic imagery, the unconscious mind begins making connections automatically. And we love categories. We do love categories, which is also part of that, the horoscope. I want to kind of come back to that. There's the zodiac is very much involved in this too, so like we get the Scorpio symbol. The major arcana cards all are associated with a astrological sign too. So it's all part of it. But we love symbols. We love patterns and themes and categories. It helps us feel safe in this world, gives us a sense of, knowing that where otherwise maybe we feel a little lost. So the brain will ask, what does this remind me of? How does this resonate with my life? What emotions does this bring up? So whenever you look at a card or a collection of cards, that's kind of the questions I would want you to ask yourself is basically, what does this mean for me in my life? So tarot often becomes less about fortune telling, and it's more about meaning making. What does this mean to me, for me, so that I can highlight certain things that I need to maybe pay attention to. It's important to talk about with the archetypes, to speak of Carl Jung. And he was a psychiatrist who studied archetypes, and often with regard to dreams. So he's one of the most fascinating psychological lenses, or he had one of the most interesting psychological lenses through which he saw symbolism, and we still use a lot of the symbolism meaning when we look at dream analysis to this day. So he believed that humans share something called the collective unconscious. And it's a deep psychological layer containing universal symbolic patterns known as archetypes. So the archetypes are reoccurring human themes and character energies that appear across cultures, myths, religions, literature, and again, dreams, like I mentioned. So examples of common archetypes are the mother, which, with tarot, again, I'm not going to point out every single one of them, but with the tarot, that Empress energy, but also like the queens in the court cards have mothering energy sometimes. The shadow, the wise elder, the hero, the innocent, the trickster, the magician, the lover, the destroyer, the seeker. It's filled with so many types of archetypes in tarot, but also just, again, thinking of literature that you're familiar with, or religious or spiritual teachings that you're familiar with. You can often find common archetypes that show up in various belief systems. And so the tarot is full of archetypes. So here are some examples. I know I read off the major arcana to you, but here's a little bit more info on them. So the Fool, as I mentioned, often represents innocence, beginnings, risk, and trust. So starting out on this adventure, starting out on this journey, but not really knowing where you're going, not really knowing. So there's a risk there. You're taking a leap of faith as you start your journey. The Empress I talk a lot about reflects nurturing, creativity, abundance, and that feminine energy that we love so much here at Gifts of Intuition. Then we have the Hermit card. It may not be what you think it is. So it's represented by like an old man with a lantern all by himself. And it's kind of like, I don't know, a sad or scary looking card, but really what it symbolizes is introspection, wisdom, solitude, and inner searching. So it's more so like not a hermit in that I avoid people, I don't like people. It's more of like, let me go within. Let me go search within myself. Let me seek answers within myself. Let me step away and reflect before I act or respond or take the next step. Then we have with the Death card. As I mentioned before, the Death card often is more about rebirth than it is actual death. But it's, so we got transformation, but endings and new beginnings. And it really is, it can mean literal death, but it's often so much more than that. And like I mentioned, the Tower earlier, so I mentioned like the tower crumbling so that you can rebuild, but it can also mean like upheaval in your life, and that can be very scary, or a collapse of an illusion, like maybe you starting to see things for what they really are. It could be ego disruption, which is very hard to accept, and maybe you're seeing yourself in a different way, or you're being forced to see yourself in a different way. Or sudden change, which can also be scary, but a good thing. But even good things, good change can be scary. So these images, they resonate because they reflect universal emotional experiences that no matter what you believe, we experience in our own way. So tarot often works because people psychologically recognize themselves in these archetypal stories, in this imagery, in these themes. And And so again, our brains seek this. Our brains seek patterns and imagery that we connect to, that we relate to, or that feels familiar from, we connect the dots, so to speak. Like this reminds me of this. So for me, this says this to me. Okay. So the human brain is constantly trying to create meaning and seek out patterns. Again, there's a safety in that. There's a sense of like, I know this, there's familiarity, and we're just these creatures that want to feel safe in our lives. And to some extent, it's an illusion because we can't really know for sure where something's going to go, because we have free will and we can always change the course of our lives. But it is a good opportunity for us to reflect on where we are at the moment, as we sort of decide where we want to go next. Is this going the way I want it to go? And if not, maybe I need to look at that. So when we look at symbolic systems like tarot, the brain naturally begins to connect to that imagery, and it evokes memories and fears, desires, relationships, internal conflicts, hopes, and unconscious emotional material to work with. So in psychology, this relates somewhat to the concept of projection. It's like our inside experience is very much projected into the world of how we see things. The lens through which we see things is a reflection of how we see ourselves and our internal experience. And so we project that out into the world. And so these images are just an opportunity for us to connect that projection from within. So it's those internal thoughts and emotions or unconscious material that's we're working with from our own lives and history and experiences and traumas and wounds, reflected outward into something external. So tarot can function almost like a psychological mirror, and the card itself is static. The cards don't change, but the meaning that we derive from them becomes deeply personal, based on what we see when we look at any particular card. So two people can pull the exact same card and interpret completely different based on their history, their emotional state, trauma, relationships, personality, fears, spiritual beliefs, current life circumstances, whatever it is. And it's kind of what makes tarot psychologically interesting. So yes, there are cards that have predetermined themes and messages, and you can very much memorize those if you want to. But and I have done that myself because I am a very analytical person, and it's really hard for me to trust in my intuition as much as I want to all the time. It's a skill that I really work hard at building. But really the idea of tarot is truly to interpret the cards for yourself, develop your own meanings when you look at the imagery. Okay, so going into more about intuition, I just told you how I struggle. As much as I know intuition is so important with the divine feminine and really connecting with ourselves and trusting in ourselves, when it comes to tarot, I so just want to get it right. I want to make sure I get the right message, so I'm not reading it wrong. I'm working on this to like pull a card and really sit with it and reflect on it. That's hard for me. And so let's talk about intuition. Well, many people who use tarot as a way to slow down their access their inner reflection. So I guess psychologically, rituals that encourage mindfulness and introspection can help people do this. So I can get caught up in my analyzing of information and worrying. And so sometimes just the act of stopping and like drawing a few cards and reflecting helps me kind of center and ground myself. So for you, you know, it may be a completely different experience, but it can help you process emotions and regulate your nervous system and access creativity because you're kind of thinking with a different part of your brain. It can sort of externalize fears for you. So like get them out of your head and give them, like sort of represent them in a more practical manner. And connect with parts of yourself that maybe you usually avoid. That's that shadow work that I've talked about before. Especially when you get like a card that evokes some fear and you're like, oh, cringe, I don't want to look at that. But like, look at it. It's not dangerous to look at it and sit with it. So tarot can sometimes bypass purely logical thinking, and that's what it challenges in me, and help people engage emotionally and symbolically instead. For example, like someone struggling with burnout may intellectually know they're exhausted, but pulling a card like the 10 of Wands might emotionally land in a different way. So, in the 10 of Wands, if I had it readily available, I could show you. It's basically, it's a really, oh, I'll look for it. But anyway, it's a hard card to look at. It looks really sad and depressing. But the symbolism creates that emotional excess as you go for it. So here, I actually just found it. So it just looks like such hard work. Oh, this camera's backwards. I don't know if you can see, like he's working so hard to get where he wants to go. I mean, just like take that card in for a moment. Again, this is the 10 of Wands, and he definitely looks like he's struggling. Yeah. And for many women, especially, tarot can become like a framework for like reconnecting with that intuition. Again, that's largely one of the tools for me is trying to build my trust in my intuition. It can also connect with embodiment and emotional truth, obviously spirituality, creativity, and self-reflection. And not necessarily because the cards themselves hold some magical power, but because symbolic reflection can create psychological insight. Insight that maybe the more analytical side of you doesn't stop to really pull out and look at from a different perspective. Like the Hanged Man, for instance. I often think of the Hanged Man or Hanged One, depending on the deck. It sounds crazy, but like it's not a bad card. Like it's got a person hanging, and it's like, oh my God, that sounds awful. Like they're being hung. But no, if you look at the card, which again, I don't really have it right here, but they're hanging upside down, and they're seeing the world from a different perspective. They're like looking at things upside down, and they're creating pause, because obviously if you're hanging there, you can't keep going, you can't go back, you can't do a whole lot, you're kind of stuck there. But like that's not necessarily a bad thing. Maybe you need to hang out for a bit and maybe look at things from a different perspective. And I'm desperately trying to find the Hangman card here as I say this. But anyway, I reference that in my own thinking of like, this is like a Hanged Man opportunity to like look at something from a different perspective. Oh, here it is. Yay. Okay. So like, it's not a scary card like somebody being hung, like killed, but they're like hanging upside down from like a tree and just like looking at the world from a different perspective. And sometimes if this card appears, it's like, what does that mean to you? Maybe it's a reflection of what you're doing, like acknowledging that you are looking at things from a different perspective, or maybe kind of giving you a nudge to look at things from a different perspective. Take a break, pull back, stop what you're doing, and just reflect. Anyway, I love the symbolism, and I hope that you can open to loving this too, because it can be a really great way for you to connect with yourself. Okay, from a shadow work perspective, the divine feminine and the divine feminine, the tarot often appeals to women because it reconnects with that symbolic, intuitive, cyclical, emotional and introspective aspect of that divine feminine that is so true to us in understanding ourselves. So modern society heavily prioritizes logic and productivity and external validation. And again, tarot really does help me personally pull from that and go into a more creative, self-reflective place. So many women feel starved from inner reflection or spiritual exploration or emotional depth, ritual embodiment, creativity, and connection to the unconscious mind. So tarot offers this symbolic space for self-reflection. And this is where shadow work often enters the picture. And I've talked about shadow work in a previous episode, and I just my phone's ringing, so sorry. Okay, sorry. I did an episode on shadow work in the past, and so go back and watch it. But basically, what the shadow is suppressed emotions and fears and wounds, unmet needs, shame, projections, and hidden aspects of yourself that need attention, that need to be embraced and accepted and utilized in an effective way to help you grow so that you don't keep getting stuck in unhelpful loops and patterns that you're not looking at. So tarot cards can act as prompts to bring unconscious material into awareness. So sometimes a card doesn't resonate because it predicts something. Sometimes it resonates because it reveals something. We already know deep down, but maybe we haven't fully acknowledged. So it's not necessarily about again, fortune telling, but looking within. Really look at this. And psychologically, awareness creates opportunity for healing. We get awareness and insight when we reflect and we look at ourselves and we look within. We still have to take action and decide where we're going to go from there, but it starts with being open to even looking at something in the first place. And so this gives a very creative way to do that. And then I guess more from mental health, I really want to add that the mental health component, this is very important to consider here, that this is a tool of mental health. So tarot should ideally support reflection, not replace critical thinking or therapy. This is a tool, okay? It's a tool. It shouldn't replace medical care, personal agency. It's not because the tarot said this is going to happen. You still have free will. And it definitely shouldn't replace your sense of reality testing. So again, it's a tool. It's not the end all be all, okay? For some people, especially those struggling with severe anxiety or maybe OCD or paranoia or excessive reassurance seeking patterns, tarot can unintentionally become compulsive. So I want you to keep an eye out for that if this shouldn't be something that I have to ask the cards, I need to know. This is something that, just like many other tools in your toolbox, let me just take a look at the cards and see what's coming up for me. It's a tool, guys, okay? So it is not these cards are not plucked from the heavens and, I don't know, they're not everything. They're just insight and reflection tools. So examples of excessiveness would be repeatedly pulling cards for certainty. Nothing is certain. Nothing is certain. Even a medium or a psychic will tell you this could all change because you have free will, and so does everyone else. So there is no such thing as true certainty, okay? We're looking at patterns and themes and self-reflection. Obsessively seeking reassurance, asking the same questions over and over and trying to get different or better answers, or using tarot to eliminate uncertainty. These are things we need to watch out for, guys. This is not what this is for, okay? So that can reinforce anxiety rather than reduce it, because you're looking for something that you're not going to get from it. Or if it appears to be certainty, it can be very scary, because then you forget that, oh yes, this can still change. I can still do something about this. So healthy spiritual exploration should ideally increase self-awareness and empowerment, not create emotional dependence or fear. And discernment really does matter. And so you need to discern for yourself, is this helpful or is this hurting me? Am I leaning too much into, well, the card said, so therefore this is true? No. Take what you want, leave the rest. But also it's really an opportunity to sit back, reflect, and ask yourself, where am I? Where do I want to go? How is this going for me? Yeah, it's going to pull out these themes. Let me also throw this at you too. If you are somebody who is more spiritually clairvoyant or connected to your spirit guides from a more spiritual standpoint, these can be used for that kind of communication. But if that's not something that you have naturally or you're trained in, I want to come back to, these can just be a tool for your own self-reflection. They don't have to be used for spiritual divination, but they can be. They do have that component too. It just kind of depends on the person who's using them and for what purposes you're using them. So at the end of the day, I guess tarot may work, but not because it magically controls your fate. It more so works because human beings are deeply symbolic creatures searching for meaning, insight, healing, and connection. And the cards speak in archetypes. And whether it's through a dream or a tarot card or a childhood fable or spiritual text, we really lean into these archetypal figures as familiar guides on our own personal journey. So because the cards speak in archetypes, it really connects with something kind of ancient within us. So whether you view tarot as spiritual or psychological, intuitive or symbolic, artistic or therapeutic, or all the above, its power may lie in its ability to help us pause long enough to hear ourselves more clearly. And sometimes the card itself is not the message. Sometimes your reaction to the card is the message. Okay, so as always, if this episode resonated with you, please like the video and subscribe to my channel, and share it with others. Leave comments. Let me know what you thought of this. Is this something you've ever tried before? Do you use tarot in your own practice? How does it resonate with you in your own life? What role does it serve in your life? And yeah, I look forward to having even more conversations about psychology and spirituality and trauma, symbolism, shadow work, women's mental health, divine feminine, motherhood, all the topics that I explore here. I go in many different directions and I kind of circle back a few times. So anyway, again, welcome to Gifts of Intuition, or welcome back. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you come back and see me really soon. Take care of yourself. I'll see you in the next episode, and as always, trust your intuition, or as I'm still doing, learn to trust your intuition. Thank you. Bye.